we are all too likely to ignore the obvious things in front of us.
We always look at risk, gray rhinos and black swans, but there may be potential areas that we have not looked into as well. So, and that is a risk.
The whole point of the gray rhino is that you've got a choice, is that some people ignore it and some people don't, and that you're more likely to ignore it than you want to admit. And the people who can admit that vulnerability actually have so much more power.
In this moment, we are all living through the biggest crisis in our lifetimes. We have a global health crisis with the pandemic. We have an economic crisis, and we also have a business crisis. And as we all know, after every crisis, the awareness and scope of risk management changes.
We are not dealing with risk, we are dealing with uncertainty. It's not a question of which of a limited number of outcomes will take place. It's a question of not knowing what the range of potential outcomes is. And therefore we cannot assign probabilities to those because we don't even know what they are.
I think we have an ocean of emerging risks, and we've just got to keep ourselves sane.
I try to get people to think about how do you create urgency and not panic. It's like if you know certain building blocks aren't there, there's still things that you can do so that when the right moment comes, you've got a solution.
As an accountant, you are able to see the entire spectrum of the business because you look into the entire financial and performance, and you can provide insights and aid in the formulation of the organization's strategy.
If accountants can understand the business better and provide unique solutions to where they work, that is an area where they can add most amount of value.
Integration of this non-financial and financial element would be my best advice for all the boards that are out there listening to us.
So accounting and finance professionals really understand what drives business performance. But we really have to go beyond financial statements that reflects the performance of the past and be much more forward-looking.
The coronavirus this year really helped people to understand that we really do take our eyes off the ball when it comes to obvious things.
I don't care how many levels of defense you have, 4 if you want to bring in the externals. They all fall down if they're not competent. Mm-hmm. The weakest one. And we've seen that spectacularly in recent years with major organizations just completely crashing and burning.
In some respects, we are really blessed that we went through the 2007 and 2008 banking crisis. Because if we didn't learn from that and really build up the risk management, the capital and liquidity reserves in our banking system, we would be right now having another crisis on our hands, which would be a banking crisis, and that would be a much deeper hole.
There's just so much reskilling that needs to happen in the world that we're looking at. There are implications around mental health. Pandemic is not easy. It's not anticipated. We are keeping people at homes. They're not used to staying homes. Human beings are social connectors.
So there were a lot of people doing articles on how to keep attention on climate change, how climate change is related to pandemics.
Whether they want to or not, banks are really starting to think long and hard about what exposure they have to climate risk through their customers, and indeed embed that in some of their risk modeling, but also to think harder about their role as perpetrator and what contribution are they making to the climate emergency.
Each one of us, I say, has what I call a risk fingerprint. And it's true not just for individuals, but for companies, risk culture in a company and in countries, as I've seen, so much so in this sort of whiplash between the US and China. Part of it also has to do with this sort of collectivist versus individualist thinking. When you think about risk, you're not just thinking about risk to yourself, but to your family, to your community.
The operating environment has become very challenging. There's a lot of uncertainty, but a good accountant should be able to prepare predictive, analytical reports, which the CEOs can base on to make good decisions for the future.
Being a professional accountant, we are trained on professionalism and ethics, and we are bound by a professional body's code of ethics on these areas. So that sound grounding gives us accountants a head start in a career in risk management.
I think in a world where trust at the moment is become vulnerable, the word trust, the role of the accountant is even much more necessary.
The accountancy profession is in an exciting rebirth because it will be dealing with value creation, and the lead in the C-suite will be the accountant, will be the true change maker.
I see opportunities for both companies and accounting and finance professionals.
It's going to need a mindset shift, not just from this traditional linear thinking to a more complex model, but also from these, black swans, no accountability, we never saw it coming, to this gray rhino mentality where yes, here are things that we see coming. Let's hold ourselves and others accountable for doing something about them.
We are powerful. What we put in our, sustainable reports are going to be very critical.
I have high hopes for 2021, and I believe that will be the year where, especially in Poland, capital and financial market participants, they will start incorporating non-financial criteria into their decision making.
What we say is the accountant of the future is the one who thinks about planet, people, purpose, and then finally profits.
I would suggest thinking about incorporating more scenario analysis, more storytelling.
It's a good time to use our brains and analyze risk from different parameters and make this a bigger reality.